Welcome to the Awakened Anesthetist podcast, the first podcast to highlight the CAA experience. I'm your host, Mary Jean, and I've been a certified anesthesiologist assistant for close to 2 decades. Throughout my journey and struggles, I've searched for guidance that includes my unique perspective as a CAA. At one of my lowest points, I decided to turn my passion for storytelling and my belief that the CAA profession is uniquely able to create a life by design into a podcast. If you are a practicing CAA, current AA student, or someone who hopes to be one, I encourage you to stick around and experience the power of being in a community filled with voices who sound like yours, sharing experiences you never believed possible. I know you will find yourself here at the Awakened Anesthetist podcast. Welcome in. Hello, Awakened Anesthetist family. This is your host, Mary Jean, and this is a really special episode. This is my first update on a process episode. Today, I am reintroducing Stephanie Zunini. Stephanie was the season 3 opening process episode 35, and I've linked it down in the show notes. If you've not listened to that, I do suggest you listen to that first and then come back and hear what Stephanie's up to now. This is just a really exciting time in our profession. We're definitely at an inflection point of growth. And I had interviewed Stephanie right as the Nevada CAA licensure bill had passed in June of 2023. And Stephanie was the president of the Nevada Academy of Anesthesiologist Assistants at that time. And so I interviewed her and 2 other people who were really instrumental in getting that licensure bill passed. And in the conversation with Stephanie, I finally, for once for myself, learned what it really takes to pass an AA bill. I really more so understood the licensure process. I've been a CAA for years and years and just never really understood what was happening at the legislative level. So if any of that interests you, I do recommend you go back and listen to process episode 35 and then come back to this and catch up with Stephanie now. She is living and working in Nevada, and we talk about the steps that have to happen after an AA bill passes to then step foot inside a hospital in a new state. It's not just like snap your fingers and it works out perfect. So Stephanie shares behind the scenes there, and then just generally what she's doing and what she hopes for next in her life as she has some big things to update. So if you're someone who hopes to one day work in Nevada or maybe open a new state and move back to your home state, this is a really great episode to see to believe what's possible for you. All right, let's jump in. Why don't you, in case people haven't listened to your process episode, which they should go back and listen, just brief us on your journey from AA school through passing the AA bill, just where you were in the world, what AA school you went to, just like a really brief introduction to catch everyone up to where we're going to be launching off from in this episode.
Got it. So yes, my name is Stephanie Zunini, and I went to AA school at Case Western in Washington, D.C. I graduated from there in May of 2021. And just before I graduated, I started this whole venture about trying to pass this licensure bill in Nevada. I figured that if no one tries, that it'll never happen. And I really didn't know that many people that were involved in the profession from Nevada. So I told myself I wanted to give it one shot, or at least try and see what happens. So fast forward, I moved from DC, worked in Southern Indiana for a year. Then I moved to Denver for 2 years, and spoiler, but the bill passed, and I just moved to Las Vegas at the beginning of September of this year, 2024. So,
And when did the bill pass exactly?
So the governor signed the bill into law in June of 2023, and then it became effective, which was just in the how the legislation worked. It became effective January of 2024, so this year.
Okay. Yeah, so Stephanie's past process episode is actually with 2 other people who were really integral in having the AA bill pass in the state of Nevada. And it was not a super quick process. It occurred over many years. So if you go back to that episode, I believe it's episode 35, you'll get to hear more of how the bill passed and Stephanie's role in that. You were and still are the Nevada Academy of Anesthesiologists Assistants president, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I feel like after the bill passed, I definitely took a little bit of a break. Everyone who was involved in the Nevada AAA and everything definitely felt, especially me, felt a little bit burnt out after the legislation passed, after this huge accomplishment that we had been working for so long towards. So I felt like we took definitely a long break, but we're excited to kind of get back into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is really real and a part of the conversation I want to have today, because what many people may not understand is that even though the state passed the bill so that it is legal for AAs to work in the state of Nevada, there are several other layers that need to be cleared in order for an AA to actually physically walk into a hospital and deliver anesthesia. So let's pick up the conversation, Stephanie, maybe with the bill passed in June, and rightfully so. You were pretty burned out, it sounds like, and sort of like this huge exhale after this really big push. And unfortunately, it almost had just begun. You were maybe like halfway there. Take us to that moment, sort of right when you're burned out, but you're like, gee, do I want to move back home? What's my next step? What was your mindset right when we were recording September of last year?
Yes, I definitely, during that time, when we talked about all the intricacies of the legislative session, and that was a roller coaster in itself. And then when we last talked, I was definitely on a huge high. We were all very ecstatic that this bill passed. And now, our gear shifts a little bit. Like, we're pretty exhausted, and we had been working for this goal for 2.5 years. And now I didn't realize, now I kind of went on this new roller coaster of getting our licenses in Nevada and credentialing at hospitals or in cities that we're hoping to work in now. But I definitely started picturing myself moving back to my hometown, which was the reason that I started this whole journey from the beginning. But to be honest, I definitely knew all along deep down that even though the bill passed, it didn't mean that we were going to magically be able to walk in and start working anywhere that we wanted to. So that definitely made me pretty apprehensive and knew that there was still a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, even though I knew there was a ton of work to be done, I felt super burnt out in regards to the legislative stuff, because that was a huge grind for the 2.5 years that I really dove into that. So
let me ask you something, because I'm not sure if even I can exactly explain what the exact steps are after a bill passes. Do you feel like you've got a good handle on the other levels that needs to get passed? Can you describe that?
Yeah, so obviously the governor signed it into law in June of 2023, and then it became effective January 1st of 2024. So what that means is that the medical boards in Nevada are required by law to give out licenses to those applicants that obviously meet all the requirements, but by law they are required to start issuing licenses to those applicants as of January 1st of 2024. It definitely took a while for boards to now translate the legislation into their own regulations. So now each board has to write their own regulations to enforce the law. So if you are not following something that's written in the legislation, it's the board's responsibility to enforce it and say, oh, you did this, now your license is suspended, XYZ. So they have to go through their own regulatory writing process. So that wasn't, nothing is quick. So people were asking why, if the bill passed in June of 2023 and became effective in January 2024, why didn't we start working in Nevada till September of 2024? Which, to be honest, that was probably one of the quickest turnarounds, I would guess, in all the states that have passed legislation. It just takes so long for this regulatory process with the boards. And then not to mention starting to educate the hospitals, from the surgeons to the nurses to the background staff, the credentialers, on our scope of practice and what we can do. And they have to write out our delineation of privileges for the hospital and change their bylaws to write in that we are, recognized as a provider at that hospital. Not to mention also, educating the groups on the billing process or just the infrastructure to hire us. So I realized the legislative session was a huge roller coaster, but that was only a small piece of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been dealing with over the past year since we last chatted.
And who's helping you do this? Who's the team making these pushes?
So I would say a lot of the same people that were involved in the legislative effort have been here along the way. A lot of it is kind of out of our hands because it really fell on the boards, typically in Nevada, the two different boards, the MD board and the DO board. There were different periods where we could assist along the way and clarify the ways in which we practice or questions that they had. And then obviously a lot of help was coming from the Nevada anesthesiologists that were key in the legislative session. And then they also were following up too to watch as their own boards were going through the regulatory process.
Mm-hmm. How critical do you think it was to have a CAA pushing to want to work in Nevada? Like, do you think other people would have just carried all of this work for you if there was not a very specific CAA who wanted to work as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think that was a key part in this legislative session or this whole process, this go around. I think I mentioned in the last episode that there were attempts in 2011, 2015, and 2017 for previous AA licensure in Nevada. And I think having the professional advocacy of the Nevada AAA this time around and just more involvement from actual AAs that are licensed and working in other states, it really motivated the, not only the legislators, but also now the groups to hire us because they see that, oh my gosh, there are actual real people wanting to come back. So it's a huge feat to take on for the physicians or the groups that are interested in hiring us because it's a ton of work up front with not much personal or, any sort of gain for the group immediately. They have to learn about the billing and everything. So it's a huge thing to take on for them without knowing that anyone wants to come back and work. So I think knowing that we're ready, just tell us when we can come, was a huge, huge help to get it going here so fast.
Let's maybe walk the listeners just your own timeline in Nevada, if you can, from bill passing to walking into an operating room to deliver anesthesia for the first time. Do you have those dates that you could do that kind of roughly?
Yes. So I got my medical license through the Nevada State Board of Medical Examiners at the beginning of this year. I want to say it was probably January or February, because like I said, they are required by law as of January 1st of 2024 to start licensing us. So after I got my license through the Nevada State Board of Medical Examiners in January, February, the regulatory process was starting through the hospital and they started writing delineation of privileges and approving us, adding us to their bylaws. So yes, I started work the very beginning of September of 2024 in Las Vegas. So the first group that successfully hired the first four of us, that started working is one of the big private practice corporate groups that has a practice in Las Vegas, which was honestly a great way to break into the state because this specific group uses AAs in other parts of the country. And so they have a ton of infrastructure just within the company on knowing how to bill for us. They leaned on a ton of other locations that are using AAs. So it was actually quite a smooth transition. And we were all very pleasantly surprised with how we transitioned into the state. Obviously, we knew we were going to be guinea pigs regardless because it's always new. No one knew who we were. But our employer did so much groundwork for us and education of the surgeons and the nurses and all the other staff at the hospital up to the C-suite. And then they worked internally with their other groups nationwide on, the onboarding of us or, what we need as AAs or how to make it a smooth transition. So that was really, really helpful.
I think it may be overwhelming for people who are listening. When you're not inside the process, it sounds very confusing, very convoluted, slow, and sort of like hard to get motivated to start, maybe. What does it feel like now to be on the other side?
I think it definitely feels super surreal. I still can't believe that we are at this period. I thought that when I first even heard of going to AA school, I knew it was a huge risk for me to take, that I could potentially never be able to move back to my home state or closer to my family. So being here now and seeing that it all actually happened, which I never thought was possible, definitely made all the work very worth it. And I have to be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I definitely took one day at a time and learned so much day to day as I went. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm not qualified to be doing this, but I just kept telling myself that if no one is out there trying, then it will never happen. And it was something that I was pretty passionate about. So I think for anyone out there that is from a state that we can't work in, or maybe from a state that we can work in, that they wish there could be changes made to the legislation or licensure, that just try. Like I said, it's not going to happen if you don't try. And so just to take one step at a time. And there's so many people out there, and we have just such a great family of A's across the country that if you just start those conversations, you'll probably be surprised of how many people are willing to help you or how many people are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is the age-old CAA story that there's so few of us that one person can make a difference, which is a huge privilege and also a really big burden. Like there's just no other way around it.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, you've literally forever changed the course of what it means to be a CAA. Like that's amazing. It is so incredible that in 25 years, all the people who are working in Nevada may not even know that this whole thing happened. Hopefully the podcast is around. They can listen to this episode.
Yes.
We'll see where podcasts are in 25 years. But I'm so grateful that you did this update with me and that we can celebrate that you are now working in your home state. And I know that you're working in Nevada, but would you really want to work in Reno? Is that the dream of all dreams?
Yes. So that was definitely, this decision to move back was so difficult for me because basically after the bill passed, after we were on this big high that, I started picturing myself moving back to Reno. And I definitely realized that some parts of the state, like Vegas, were progressing a lot more quickly in the sense of hiring us than other parts of the state, like Reno, which is my hometown. So I definitely had to make a huge decision. if I wanted to move somewhere like Vegas, which I didn't initially ever see myself moving, from my practice in Denver, where I felt so comfortable. I felt established there. I had great, amazing friends that I know I will have for a lifetime that were so hard to leave. But I felt like if I still moved to Nevada, that it could help other areas of the state be more confident to follow suit and start hiring us if they see that it worked well in other areas. So it was really hard to tell my group in Denver that I was going to move away, obviously, because they knew that I loved working there, but I don't think it was as big of a surprise because they knew how hard I was working on the legislative stuff, and they were helping me arrange my schedule so that I could go testify, and they knew that I have family in Nevada. So I don't think it was a huge surprise to them, but regardless, it never is easy telling an employer that you're leaving. And again, it's never easy making a huge life-changing decision like that. But I just felt like it was in my gut, and I just had to continue on with this process and just dive in and see what happens.
We're going to have to do an update to your update, Stephanie, in a year.
See if
We're
I'm
just going
in
to keep
Vegas,
updating
see if I'm in
Stephanie.
Reno, see where I am. I don't know.
Oh, I'm just so proud of you. I've just learned so much through watching the process through you and learning about it through you. I hope this audience and all the future CAAs are inspired to take the first step to try to open a new state or a new hospital or a new practice, because truly one person can make that difference if you stay dedicated and persevere, because that's how Stephanie did it. And that is the living proof that works. So I just really, again, want to thank you for coming on and doing this update. And I hope you have a wonderful, lovely day. She's actually in Reno right now visiting her family. You must have the day off from your job.
Yes, I do. So yes, it's been very, very lovely. I have really been enjoying my new job in Vegas. It has been, even though I'm not home, it is the next best thing. And it's so easy to get home. For those that aren't aware of how the geography is in Nevada, Las Vegas is about 7 hours, a 7-hour-ish drive south of Reno, where my family is. So they have about a flight every hour. So
Oh, wow.
the flights, they can't even finish the drink service before the flight lands usually. So it's been super easy for me to Zoom home on a long weekend or even just a day trip if I wanted to. So I've been really enjoying being closer. And, I think that everything happens for a reason. And I really think that this is just part of the journey and where I need to be. And I've been really enjoying it. So,
yeah. Well, I'm really happy for you, and I'm really grateful to have you back on. And we'll just keep, we're just watching you and we're rooting for you. So
thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you do, just highlighting our profession and getting the word out there and making people feel seen. And so everything that you do is awesome.
Thank you, Stephanie. Feelings mutual.
Thank you.
I hope you loved catching up with Stephanie and feel inspired by her journey to actually practice in her home state. And I will continue to follow Stephanie's journey as she hopefully one day soon is working in Reno, which is her dream location. That's where her family is within the state of Nevada. And so, I'm totally going to let you know when she crosses that last hurdle for herself and for our CAA profession. If you loved this episode, or you know someone in your life who would really be inspired, I would love for you right now to share this episode with that other CAA or AA student or person in your life who needs to hear Stephanie's story. Tell them why you loved this episode and why you think they'll love this episode. That one-to-one connection is really what's helping to grow this Awaken Anestis community and therefore our CAA profession as a whole. I'm just so excited to be a part of it with you all. As always, you can check the show notes for a bunch more ways to connect. I have the season 4 Mindful Connection sessions that are running through March of 2025. We meet monthly to practice a little bit of mindfulness, to meet within this CAA community. Everyone's invited, whether you're a student or a practicing or retired CAA or a prospective AA student. This is just a time for us to get together in a like-minded community and to learn a little bit more about who we are and how we work in the world, all really in this hopes that we can use our CAA profession to live a life by design rather than default. So there's more information about the upcoming sessions in the show notes. You can get on the email list there. I also have just a general newsletter you can subscribe to and hear more updates. Just get it right there in your inbox. What else? You can follow me on Instagram at Awakened Anesthetist. I tend to show some behind the scenes there on my Instagram. And I think that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and let's talk next week.